Everyone knows Medusa, the monster with snakes for hair, the creature that turns men to stone with a single glance. If you see her in a Hollywood movie, she is always the villain-level boss that the hero needs to kill to save the day. But have you ever stopped to ask, why? Why does she have snakes on her head? Why does she hate men so much? And why is she hiding on an island far away from civilization? The answer is tragic. Medusa wasn't born a monster. She was made one by a cruel system. Let's look at who she was before the snakes. Medusa was originally a stunningly beautiful human woman. She was a devout priestess in the temple of Athena. She was famous for her beautiful hair. She took a vow of celibacy and dedicated her entire life to serving the goddess of wisdom. She did everything right. She followed every rule. But then, Poseidon saw her. The god of the sea decided he wanted her. And when a god wants something, they take it. Medusa said no. She ran into Athena's temple for protection, hugging the statue of her goddess, begging to be saved. But Athena did not answer. The marble statue remained silent. Poseidon assaulted Medusa right there on the cold floor of the sacred temple. Now, this is the part that makes your blood boil. What did Athena do when she found out? Did she punish her uncle Poseidon? Did she demand justice? No. He is a powerful male god, and Athena is a daddy's girl. Instead, Athena blamed the victim. She claimed Medusa defiled her temple. And it wasn't just Medusa. Medusa had two sisters, Stheno and Euryale. They tried to protect Medusa during the assault. For their bravery, Athena punished them too. She turned all three sisters into the Gorgons. She turned Medusa's beautiful hair into venomous vipers. And then, she gave her the ultimate curse. She made it so that no man could ever look at her again without turning to stone. Think about the psychological horror of that. Athena didn't just make her ugly. She made her lethally isolated. She ensured Medusa would be alone forever. Centuries later, Perseus comes along. History calls him a hero. I call him a pay-to-win player using cheat codes. Perseus didn't fight Medusa in a fair duel. He couldn't. He needed Hermes to give him winged sandals. He needed Hades to give him a helmet of invisibility. He needed Hephaestus to give him a diamond sword. And he needed Athena to give him a mirrored shield. It took 5 gods to help one man kill a single sleeping woman. Yes, she was sleeping. He snuck into her cave like a coward, looked at her reflection in the shield, and cut off her head while she was dreaming. He murdered a pregnant woman in her sleep. Because that's the other detail they leave out. Medusa was still pregnant with Poseidon's children. When her head was severed, Pegasus, the winged horse, and Chrysaor sprang from her blood. Even in death, Medusa was treated as an object. Perseus used her severed head as a weapon to turn his enemies to stone. He flew around the world using her like a flashlight of death. And eventually, he gave the head to Athena, the goddess who ruined Medusa's life, who blamed her for being attacked, now wears her severed head on her shield as a fashion accessory. So next time you see a statue of Medusa, don't see a monster. See a woman who was failed by the gods, failed by justice, and hunted down for crimes she didn't commit. She isn't a villain. She is the ultimate symbol of survivor rage. When you picture the Minotaur, what do you see? A bloodthirsty beast waiting in the dark to eat people? A level boss in a video game? That is the propaganda written by the winners. That is the story Theseus told to make himself look like a hero. The reality? The Minotaur was the victim of the most messed up family drama in history. He wasn't born a monster. He was made one by neglect, abuse, and isolation. First, let's give him his dignity back. His name wasn't the Minotaur. That just means the Bull of Minos. It's a label, not a name. His mother, Queen Pasiphae, named him Asterion, which means the starry one. She looked at her baby and saw the stars, but his stepfather, King Minos, only saw shame. Let's be clear. Asterion's existence was Minos' fault. Minos was too greedy to sacrifice a beautiful white bull to Poseidon. So, Poseidon punished him by cursing his wife to fall in love with that bull. Yes, it is disturbing. But remember, Pasiphae was cursed. She was a victim of a god's revenge. When Asterion was born with the head of a bull, Minos didn't treat him like a child. He treated him like a dirty secret. He didn't kill him. He did something much crueler. He hired the inventor Daedalus to build the labyrinth. History calls it an architectural marvel. I call it what it really was. An inescapable, solitary confinement cell designed for a toddler. Asterion was thrown into that dark, damp maze as a child. Imagine that. No sunlight, no grass, no social contact. Just cold stone walls and endless darkness. He grew up completely alone. Psychologists tell us that isolation drives humans mad. Asterion went insane from loneliness. And then, the food. Minos sent criminals and sacrifices from Athens into the maze. Asterion didn't eat them because he was evil. He ate them because he was starving. He was an animalized human driven to cannibalism by the father figure who locked him away. He was terrified, hungry, and confused. Then comes Theseus, the glorious hero. Did Theseus fight a fair battle? No. He manipulated Asterion's own half-sister Ariadne to give him the cheat codes, the ball of string, to navigate the maze. He walked into the prison, found a malnourished, mentally ill creature who had never seen the sun, and beat him to death with a club. And what did Theseus do after saving the day? He abandoned Ariadne on an island while she was sleeping. Because that's what heroes do in Greek mythology. They use victims to build their reputation. So next time you see the Minotaur, don't see a monster. See Asterion, the boy who was named after the stars but died in the dark, paying the price for his father's greed. Don't fly too close to the sun. It is one of the most famous quotes in history. We use it to tell ambitious young people to stay in their lane. We use it to blame Icarus for his own death. We say he was arrogant. We say he had hubris. Wrong. Icarus wasn't arrogant. He was a teenager who trusted his genius father and paid for it with his life. The real villain of this story is Daedalus, the most toxic parent in Greek mythology. To understand why Icarus died, we have to look at Daedalus's criminal record. He wasn't just a kindly old inventor. He was a jealous murderer. Years before Icarus was even born, Daedalus had a nephew named Perdix. Perdix was a child prodigy who invented the saw and the compass. Daedalus was so jealous of the boy's talent that he lured him to the top of the Acropolis and pushed him off. So, let's be clear. We are already dealing with a man who kills children to protect his own ego. Fast forward to Crete. Why were Daedalus and Icarus in prison in the first place? It wasn't because of Icarus. It was because Daedalus helped Queen Pasiphae hook up with a bull. He built the hollow wooden cow suit that allowed the Minotaur to be conceived. He enabled the creation of the monster, and then he built the labyrinth to hide it. When King Minos threw them in the tower, it was punishment for Daedalus's crimes. Icarus was just collateral damage. He spent his entire childhood in a prison cell because of his father's dirty work. Then came the escape plan. The famous wings. Daedalus built wings out of bird feathers and held them together with beeswax. Think about the engineering here. You are in the Mediterranean. It is incredibly hot. And you attach wings to your son using wax? That is not genius. That is gross negligence. He gave his son a prototype with a fatal design flaw, zero flight testing, and no parachute. He told Icarus, "Don't fly too high, or the sun will melt the wax. Don't fly too low, or the sea spray will wet the feathers." He put the entire burden of survival on a boy who had never flown before. When they jumped, imagine what Icarus felt. He had been a prisoner his whole life. Suddenly, he was flying. The wind, the view, the adrenaline. Of course he flew high. He wasn't trying to challenge the gods, he was drunk on freedom. He was experiencing joy for the first time. And when the wax inevitably melted, because it was a terrible design, Icarus fell. He screamed as he plunged into the sea. And what did Daedalus do? He watched. He kept flying. He landed safely in Sicily, found a new king to work for, and lived a long, famous life. History remembers Daedalus as the brilliant architect, but Icarus is remembered as the fool who didn't listen. That is the ultimate gaslighting. Daedalus controlled the narrative because he was the survivor. Icarus didn't die from pride. He died because his father built a death trap and called it a masterpiece. Do you hate spiders? Most people do. But in Greek mythology, the first spider wasn't born as a monster. She was a woman named Arachne, who committed the ultimate crime. She was better at her job than a god. This is not a story about a monster. This is a story about a sore loser and the brutality of censorship. Arachne was a mortal girl, a weaver. She was a prodigy. Her tapestries were so realistic that people traveled from all over the world just to watch her work. She knew she was good. She openly said she was better than Athena, the goddess of weaving. Now, we call this hubris, or arrogance. But is it arrogance if it's true? Athena heard this and got jealous, but she didn't come down to congratulate the young artist. First, she came down disguised as an old woman. She lectured Arachne, telling her to know her place and respect the gods. Arachne, being a confident Gen Z equivalent, basically said, "If Athena is so great, let her come down and challenge me." So, Athena revealed herself. Game on. The Great Weaving Contest. This is the most important part of the story. It wasn't just about how well they wove, but what they wove. Athena wove a classic piece of propaganda. She depicted the gods in all their glory, sitting on Mount Olympus, looking perfect and majestic. It was boring, traditional establishment art. Arachne? She went punk rock. She wove a tapestry depicting the crimes of the gods. She showed Zeus cheating on Hera. She showed Poseidon chasing women. She showed Apollo killing people. She created a flawless piece of political satire exposing the hypocrisy of the ruling class. And here is the kicker. When Athena inspected Arachne's work, she looked for a flaw. She looked for a loose thread, a mistake, anything. She couldn't find one. The myth explicitly says, not even envy itself could find a fault in the work. Arachne had won. Her technique was perfect, and her message was truthful. Athena couldn't handle it. The goddess of wisdom lost her temper completely. She didn't win by skill, she won by violence. She took her heavy wooden shuttle and beat Arachne across the face. She ripped the beautiful tapestry into shreds to destroy the evidence. Arachne was humiliated. She was an artist who had just seen her masterpiece destroyed and was physically assaulted by a god. She couldn't live with the shame. She took a rope and tried to hang herself. Athena, feeling a sudden twisted mix of pity and cruelty, decided to save her. She said, "Live on, you wicked girl, but hang forever." She sprinkled potion on Arachne. Arachne's hair fell out. Her nose and ears disappeared. Her fingers turned into long, spindly legs. She shrank into the first spider. So now Arachne hangs from a thread forever, still weaving, still creating. Athena didn't punish her for being a bad person. She punished her for speaking the truth. The existence of the spider is a permanent reminder that the gods cannot handle criticism. Pandora's box. It is the ultimate metaphor for ruining everything. We blame Pandora for releasing sickness, death, and misery into the world. We call her curious. We call her disobedient. But what if I told you that Pandora was never a human woman? She was a manufactured object. She was a trap. She was, technically speaking, the first android in history. Let's look at her origin story. She wasn't born from a mother. She was built in a lab. Zeus was furious that Prometheus stole fire for humanity. He couldn't take the fire back, so he decided to poison the humans instead. He commissioned Hephaestus, the god of blacksmiths, to construct a kalos kakon, a beautiful evil. Hephaestus molded her out of earth and water. He built a statue that looked like a shy, beautiful virgin. Then the other gods installed her software. Athena dressed her in silvery robes. Aphrodite gave her grace and desire. But Hermes? Hermes gave her a shameful mind and a deceitful nature. She was programmed to lie. She was programmed to be seductive. And most importantly, she was programmed with an uncontrollable curiosity. They named her Pandora, which means all gifts. But she wasn't the gift. She was the delivery system. The actual weapon was the jar. Yes, it was a pythos, a large storage jar. The translation box came later, but let's stick with box for now. Zeus filled this jar with every horror imaginable: cancer, plague, madness, starvation, war. He sent Pandora down to Earth to marry Epimetheus, the brother of Prometheus. Prometheus warned his brother, never accept a gift from Zeus. But Epimetheus was not the smart one. He saw the beautiful Pandora and married her immediately. Now, imagine being Pandora. You are created yesterday. You have no childhood, no experience. The gods give you a jar and say, whatever you do, don't open this. But they also programmed you with burning curiosity. It's like handing a toddler a grenade with a pin and telling them it's a toy. It was a setup. Eventually, her programming took over. She opened the lid. Boom. The smoke of misery poured out. She tried to close it, but it was too late. The bioweapon was released. The only thing left inside the rim of the jar was Elpis. Hope. Now, people think hope is the good part of the story. But think about it. If the jar was full of evils, why was hope in there? Nietzsche famously said, "Hope is the worst of all evils because it prolongs the torments of man." Zeus trapped hope inside so humans wouldn't give up and die immediately. He wanted us to suffer longer. So, stop blaming Pandora. She didn't ruin the world. Zeus did. She was just a robot following her code. She is the innocent victim of a divine conspiracy to make our lives a living hell. Between a rock and a hard place. We use this idiom to describe a situation where you have no good choices. In Greek mythology, this refers to Scylla and Charybdis, two terrifying sea monsters that sailors had to pass between. If you go too close to the rock, Scylla eats you. If you go too close to the whirlpool, Charybdis drowns you. But before they were the nightmares of the Odyssey, they were women, and their stories are heartbreaking. Let's start with Scylla. Before she was a six-headed monster, Scylla was a beautiful naiad, a sea nymph. She was innocent and loved playing in the ocean. Her tragedy began when a minor sea god named Glaucus fell in love with her. Glaucus was intense. He wouldn't take no for an answer. Scylla was frightened by him and ran away. So, Glaucus went to the famous witch, Circe, and asked for a love potion to force Scylla to love him. But there was a twist. Circe actually liked Glaucus. She was jealous that he wanted Scylla instead of her. So, instead of a love potion, Circe brewed a horrific poison. She went to the secret cove where Scylla liked to bathe and poured the dark green toxin into the water. When Scylla stepped into the water, the nightmare began. She didn't die. She transformed. 6 ferocious, barking dog heads burst out of her waist. Her legs disappeared. She became a monstrosity fused to the rock, unable to move, forever in pain, lashing out at anything that came near. She didn't choose this. She was a victim of a jealous witch and a creepy stalker. Then there is Charybdis. She lies on the other side of the strait. Charybdis wasn't a victim of romance. She was a victim of war. She was a daughter of Poseidon and Gaia. She was a loyal daughter who helped her father in his feud against Zeus. She used her powers to flood lands, turning islands into sea for her father's kingdom. Zeus, being the tyrant he is, didn't like that. He didn't just kill her. He cursed her with an insatiable thirst. He transformed her into a living bladder, a giant mouth at the bottom of the sea. She is forced to suck down the entire ocean 3 times a day just to satisfy her cursed thirst, creating the deadly whirlpool. So, when Odysseus sailed between them, he wasn't fighting evil beasts. He was sailing between two cursed women. One was disfigured because she rejected a man. The other was tortured because she supported her father. They attack sailors not because they are evil, but because they are in eternal agony. Scylla screams with the voices of dogs because she lost her humanity. Charybdis swallows ships because she is starving. History calls them monsters. I call them collateral damage in the games of the gods. We have spent the last 2 weeks talking about how awful Zeus is. He is a bully, a tyrant, and a predator. So, you might be wondering, is there anyone who can actually stop him? The answer is yes. His name is Typhon, and he is the nightmares of the gods. To understand Typhon, you have to understand his mother, Gaia, Mother Earth. Gaia was furious. Zeus had defeated her children, the Titans, and locked them in the deepest pit of hell, Tartarus. Gaia is not a soft mother. She is the planet itself, and she wanted revenge. So she did the unthinkable. She mated with Tartarus, the pit of hell itself, to create a weapon. A god killer. Typhon wasn't just a giant. He was a walking apocalypse. He was so tall his head brushed the stars. Instead of fingers, he had 100 dragon heads erupting from his hands, each spitting fire and screaming in different animal voices. His bottom half was a mass of coiling vipers. He was the ultimate biological weapon designed for one purpose: to end the reign of Olympus. When Typhon marched on Mount Olympus, do you know what the brave gods did? Did they stand and fight? No. They ran. They were so terrified that they fled to Egypt and transformed themselves into animals to hide. Apollo turned into a crow. Dionysus turned into a goat. Aphrodite turned into a fish. The mighty Olympians were hiding in the mud, shaking in fear. Only Zeus stood his ground. Not because he was brave, but because his ego wouldn't let him run. And guess what? Zeus lost. This is the part of the myth that Disney leaves out. Typhon didn't just beat Zeus, he dismantled him. Typhon wrestled the lightning bolt out of Zeus's hand. He used a sickle to slice open Zeus's hands and feet. He ripped out Zeus's sinews, his tendons, leaving the king of the gods as a helpless, boneless blob of meat lying on the floor of a cave. For a brief moment in history, the bad guy won. Gaia's revenge was complete. Zeus was defeated, broken, and hidden away in a bearskin rug. So how did Zeus come back? Cheating, of course. Hermes, the god of thieves, snuck into Typhon's camp and stole the tendons back. He reattached them to Zeus using divine medicine. Zeus, fully healed and humiliated, attacked Typhon again. This time, he didn't fight fair. He spammed thunderbolts from the sky until Typhon was buried under a mountain. That mountain is now Mount Etna in Italy, which is why it still erupts today. It's Typhon trying to break free. But Typhon's legacy didn't end there. Before he was defeated, he fathered a generation of monsters. The Sphinx, his daughter. The Nemean lion, his son. Cerberus, the three-headed dog, his kid. Every hero in Greek mythology exists because they had to clean up Typhon's family tree. Typhon represents the chaos of nature. He is the reminder that no matter how ordered and powerful the gods think they are, the earth can always create something big enough to eat them.